you have it where Ronnie, in boogeyman fashion, pops up at Juliana's house, seemingly trying to continue on the conversation from when he showed up outside of the restaurant. And it was something that I picked up on where her cousin kind of shut down the conversation, but she seemed a little bit willing to continue the conversation. Now, as I said in previous reviews, suddenly Juliana's become Griselda Blanco, where it's like she's the queen pin, or at least her cousin's right-hand man. Get some leopard print, change your hair and whatnot, you're a whole new person. You're now a drug queen pin. A rival to RAQ, I guess. We'll see how that plays out. I don't see it ending very well for her. But it's interesting, the conversation that takes place between her and Ronnie, because we see that, Ronnie is trying to have them become his connect. And she states that as long as Unique is in the picture, they can't do any business. And there's quite a bit of back and forth between them where he tries to let her know. And this is as a result of, if you think back to last season where Unique, basically kidnapped her, and held her to get RAQ's attention, and since then she's been seemingly looking for payback against Unique. It's unclear why it is that if her cousin is supposed to be all-powerful, why he hasn't moved against Unique. I think part of it might be that her cousin probably realizes that Unique took her, but it was really to get RAQ's attention, and she was personally never really in any danger because he didn't harm her in any way. But you saw where last season she was trying to get RAQ to strike back at Unique for this, and when RAQ refused to do so, you then saw how things played out, right? And so now it seems like she's trying to put the battery in Ronnie's back for him to get rid of Unique. And we see it might be a matter, at least at this point, it's a matter of Ronnie and Unique can have drama between themselves, but they're not going to let anyone else get in the mix of that or allow anyone else to intervene, right? He's not going to move against Unique for anyone else's purposes, because as he states over and over, seemingly whatever problems they have between themselves, at present and at the end of the day, Unique is still Ronnie's brother, and he's going to be Ronnie's brother until he isn't, Ronnie, at least at this point, refuses to do anything to Unique, let alone for Juliana, And if you think about it, Juliana, the character is a bit shady when you think of it, right? Think back to the first season where Gabriel was admittedly an abusive husband, right? But she had her cousin, where I always questioned why it was, if her cousin was supposed to be this powerful guy and she wanted her husband out of the way, why didn't she get her cousin to get rid of Gabriel? Fine. Instead, she got RAQ to do it in exchange for connecting RAQ to her cousin, right? And even with that, it didn't come with any guarantees. RAQ had to go and sit down with him and make her pitch and whatnot to get him on board with doing business with her. Fine, fair enough. We saw last season where she's still sitting in the bodega. Unique grabbed her up. She's upset about it. She didn't turn to her cousin for him to get involved. Granted, because this came about through her, basically serving as a stash house for RAQ's money. But again, we saw her trying to use RAQ to strike back at Unique, which RAQ stated that she would get around to taking care of, but it was a matter of timing. And here again, we see her talking to Ronnie and trying to put the battery in his back, or to motivate him to do something or to get Unique out of the way, right? And it kind of speaks to the character, right? This thing of power and whatnot. And I want to get away from this whole thing about domestic violence and whatnot. It's not commentary on women or men who are being abused by their partners, but rather specifically about Juliana, where on the one hand, you have it where when seated next to her cousin, or at least now in this position where her cousin seeks her counsel, let's say, she's seemingly very brave and bold, at least when dealing with RAQ, when speaking to RAQ. But where and when possible, she's not, it's like, last season she was criticizing RAQ for seemingly letting Unique walk all over her, where RAQ was telling her it's a matter of timing and having to do things in the right way. You know, she stated that she thought RAQ was strong and powerful, but that she's actually pretty weak. And we can definitely agree that RAQ has some failings and shortcomings. But when it comes down to it, it's like RAQ might have one of her brothers handle some of her business, but we've seen like RAQ is willing to get her hands dirty as well, you know? And with regards to Juliana, they're still very different people. You know, to some degree, she seems to be maybe imitating RAQ, where she now feels like she's a queen pin and she's tough and stuff, but as we see, like, she's not willing to get her hands dirty. Right? Her power comes from her relationship to her cousin. RAQ's power comes from her being her, granted with her brother's backing, but RAQ can handle herself as well. We haven't seen that from Juliana. Juliana seems to be someone that needs to get someone else to do her dirty work. She's, at least thus far, hasn't shown herself as being capable of taking care of these kinds of problems on her own, right? Because she'll seek out someone else to take care of these kinds of things for her. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, you know, we see at Dean's funeral that RAQ shows up to pay her respects. And, you know, as is customary at many funerals, that people gave envelopes to the family, you know, to kind of help them through this difficult time and whatnot. RAQ does the same. And after interacting with Dean's grandmother, which, and I would guess maybe she raised him or something, because we haven't heard anything about his parents. Granted, we haven't really seen deep into his life or anything, but his grandmother seems to be maybe his like closest relative, because that's who you see everyone handing the envelopes to, rather than his parents or a wife or something like that. And it seems like they live together and whatnot. So here you have it that RAQ hands him an envelope, and as she goes to walk off after giving her condolences, that Unique walks in. And there's kind of like a moment where like their eyes meet, and I was hoping like, please don't start this nonsense back up between the two of them. But fortunately, they just stepped outside to talk for a bit about Dean, where at this point at least there's just whispering in the streets. No one really knows that Ronnie was the one that killed Dean, right? Because the streets seemingly were just finding out that Dean had even been murdered. And so Unique reveals to RAQ that he's pretty sure that his brother was the one that killed Dean. And at that, and he uses the phrase that I did, that Ronnie is a bull in a china shop, where he's just crashing around and breaking things. You know, and as RAQ states, and kind of more, not so much calling on Unique to do something about it, but rather that Ronnie's actions are going to result in consequences, and someone's going to have to pay for the things that he's doing, you know? And so, yet still in the midst of this, and that's to tell you that Unique still has loyalty to his brother, that he doesn't use this as an opportunity to warn RAQ that, you know, Ronnie's kind of locked in on her as well, and he's a potential threat to her as well. Instead, you know, he just kind of gives her a heads up that Ronnie was the one that off Dean, and that Ronnie's a problem out here in more general terms, but not specifically that he could be a problem for her. So it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out, you know, when and if RAQ ever becomes aware that, you know, Ronnie kind of has her in his crosshairs. And even in the midst of this, like, you know, Unique tries to flirt with RAQ at the funeral, but she kind of puts a stop to that, letting him know that it would be problems if anyone else found out, like if anyone heard him, you know, flirting with her like that and whatnot. But in the midst of this, you know, Unique warning RAQ, or telling RAQ about Ronnie being a problem out here that causing all kinds of drama and trouble, we see where in the past, Ronnie had just been hinting to Pernessa that Unique was carrying on with other women. Here, he's at their house, and he's at Unique's house, and plainly states to Pernessa that Unique and RAQ have something going on, that the two of them are sleeping together, which then leads to a confrontation between Unique and Pernessa, where much as he did previously, when she didn't know who, but Ronnie had let drop that Unique was seeing having a woman on the side. Here, where Ronnie actually says RAQ's name, Pernessa asked him about it, and it leads to an argument between the two of them, with him with this nonsense where he doesn't actually deny it, but instead states that Pernessa should be satisfied because he's providing for her, that every and anything that her and their son needs, he provides. And really, that's not enough. That's not an excuse, right? I'm with Pernessa in that regard, especially when you take into consideration the amount of drama that previously existed just up until really before the shooting. At the end of last season, the drama between RAQ and Unique, with the two of them trying to kill each other. And then here it is that you and this woman are laid up, where she tried to set him up for him to go to jail. Her brother shot up his car, where it was him and his son. They could have been killed then. Not to mention the other little tiffs and back and forths and whatnot between them. And here it is that you're now sleeping with this woman. I think Pernessa has a right to be very upset. Now, I don't think she's upset enough to really go at RAQ, but, I understand her being upset with Unique, and with this, it's just another thing, just more drama between Unique and Ronnie. They both have reason and motivation to want to get the other out of the way, but the thing that at this point is staying in their hands is that they're brothers, right? Because even the conversation that Ronnie and Unique had outside of the Chinese restaurant, where Unique let Ronnie know that had he been anyone else, the disrespect that he showed to him, that he showed to this business that he built up, would have been answered in a far different way, in a less calm demeanor than Unique exhibited towards Ronnie. But he showed some patience with his brother and granted him some grace due to them being brothers, but it's only a matter of time before that kind of stuff runs out.
Thanks for tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, go ahead and click the thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.